So what do you do when a woman says she was dangled off a balcony, but her bruises are dated wrong in terms of the picture? And what does it say about power, manipulation, and control when victims keep returning to the very person who hurt them? And then here's another question. What happens when the man on trial for violence and control starts nodding at the jury mid-testimony? Is this jury tampering? Should he be removed from the courtroom? And lastly, what do you make of a woman by the name of Jane Doe who says that she was swept in love, given gifts, then told to sleep with strangers or lose her home? Day 17 of the Diddy trial wasn't just another day in court. It was a reminder that power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes it pays your rent. I'm Stacey Brewer, and this is H Blue's Word. Be sure to hit that like button for me, subscribe, comment, and share. Now let's get into it. So day 17 started with the continuation of Bryanna's cross-examination. And you'll remember she's Cassie's close friend who testified that Diddy allegedly dangled her off of a 17th floor balcony and then threw her onto furniture. But look, today it was the credibility of that story that really got picked apart. But one major development before we get into that. Prosecutors announced that they will now ask witnesses to read text messages aloud into the record and not just show them to the jurors. This helps the media to hear what the jury is being shared, and it also might help clarify the impact and tone of these communications moving forward. Now, when it comes to Bryanna, the judge actually asked the prosecution, why is this balcony incident even relevant to the case? Now, the prosecution responded that it actually helps establish a pattern that Diddy was violent with multiple people close to Cassie, and that helps support the claims of force and coercion under the trafficking charge. Now, during cross, Bryanna admitted she went to a Diddy concert and a private party after the balcony incident. And yes, the defense jumped on that, arguing that if she stayed around him, then the incident must not have happened, right? Well, here's my thought on that. I think you need a pause there. I don't necessarily agree with that kind of reasoning. I think two things can be true, actually. Because after listening to multiple testimonies, the returning to the Diddy world seems to be the culture of those close to him. It is a pattern. We have heard other witnesses do the same as Bryanna. In fact, these witnesses either witnessed abuse or they were victims of it, but they still found themselves tied to him, whether it was socially, professionally, or even emotionally. So to me, that's not proof the mistreatment didn't happen. That's proof of just how strong Diddy's hold was, because even the defense is not denying that he is a violent individual. They even said that he's not a good guy. But why do they stay around? To me, it's the fame, the lifestyle, the illusion. It feels like I've said before, kind of cult-like. But the defense had one moment that shook Bryanna up. She said that the incident happened on September 26, 2016, based on a bruising photo that was supplied. But records show that Diddy was actually performing in Newark, New Jersey on September 25th and staying at Trump Towers on the 25th and 26th. Now, the defense attorney asked, you do agree that Diddy can't be in two places at once, right? Now, Bryanna froze on that and couldn't even answer and got tongue-tied. But on redirect, the prosecution helped clarify this. Bryanna admitted she's not quite sure of the exact date. But honestly, she should have just said that the first time. And also, here's where it gets even more interesting. Prosecutors appear to have a September 30th text exchange between Cassie and Christina Coram. Coram is Diddy's own chief of staff. And they said that the balcony incident is mentioned in these text messages. The message allegedly says Diddy choked and dangled Bryanna off the balcony. Now, to me, that's kind of a in-the-moment message. and it might be even considered an excited utterance, which can carry serious weight in court due to its spontaneous nature, and it also gives credibility and reliability to the text because, of course, back then, no one thought this would end up in a federal criminal case. So there's a good chance that message is indeed authentic and not created simply to frame Diddy. And like I said, Diddy's pattern seems to be one of someone who is violent. So I don't doubt that the incident happened. But still, many court watchers felt Bryanna's testimony didn't help the prosecution. You had her inconsistencies and inability to clearly answer under pressure, and that may have weakened their momentum. And honestly, maybe the prosecution should have skipped her. You do not want the jury to have any doubt. I mean, the prosecution had major wins with Eddie Garcia, the security guard, and the bad boy CFO, but this detour may have distracted more than it clarified. Even the judge, like I said, seemed skeptical with his question about why is the balcony incident even relevant. Now, then came a moment that made headlines for sure outside of the testimony. The judge warned Diddy that he would be removed from the courtroom if he kept interacting with the jury. Apparently, Diddy was nodding vigorously toward jurors during Bryanna's testimony. And he apparently did the same thing during George Kaplan's appearance. If you remember, he was Diddy's former assistant. Now, prosecutors argued it's a subtle form of jury tampering, a way for Diddy to testify without taking the stand. But look, that's honestly not surprising. I mean, based on witness testimony and now this behavior, Diddy seems to believe he's above the rules, or at least that the rules don't apply to him. And let's not forget, he allegedly bribed hotel security to bury footage, as testified by Eddie, my angel, Garcia. So this moment in court, it kind of tracks, to be honest. Now, next up was Enrique Santos, a digital forensics expert who examined Cassie's 3 phones. Now, he testified that he recovered a lot of deleted messages, which could play a big role in corroborating other evidence and timelines. This was not a flashy moment or a flashy testimony, but when it comes to evidence and digital trails, it can definitely be an important one overall, for sure. Then next we heard from Jane Doe, victim number 2. Now she's testifying under a pseudonym. Now she's a single mother who dated Diddy from 2021 until his arrest in 2024. Now they met late in 2020 at a yacht party in Miami. Now the wild part, he was actually dating her friend at the time, and that friend was engaged at the time, but was also dating Diddy. So she was allegedly cheating on her fiance, and she would eventually marry that fiance. So this was just some straight up messiness and some straight up debauchery all around, in my opinion. And by the way, Jane Doe, the father of her child, he's apparently an enemy of Diddy, and Diddy said he really didn't care. He still pursued her. Anyway, Jane Doe said that Diddy was charming, swept her off her feet, and started grooming her. I guess you could say similar to how Cassie was groomed. But Cassie was much younger, and I think that's important. Now, with Jane Doe, he allegedly gave her illegal substances and introduced the idea of having relations with other men. We know the whole voyeurism, which she said she initially agreed to please him. And then it spiraled, and Pandora's box was open only to potentially not ever be closed again. Now, she said one escort was involved in about 90% of the encounters. Now, eventually she said that she told him both verbally and in writing that she did not want to do the FOs anymore. And this is important because the defense argued that she was a willing participant. But Jane said Diddy threatened to stop paying for her rent if she did not continue. Now, this is still very early in her testimony. I know that foundation is being established, but so far, this sounds more like a power imbalance, maybe even a sugar daddy or a kept woman situation, not necessarily trafficking yet. But the case is building. I mean, she shared travel details like they had these hotel nights in Los Angeles, New York, Miami, and Turks and Caicos. And apparently it was all arranged by Christina or some of Diddy's assistants. Now that does start to lay the groundwork for interstate trafficking and under RICO, but still I need more if they are alleging trafficking. I mean, her testimony right now is reading like a woman who was in love and was trying to keep that lifestyle and was being financially manipulated. But like I said, that may change. For example, there's a reported incident where she tried to run out of her home and Diddy allegedly attacked her and kicked her while she was on the ground. And keep in mind, this happened during his so-called love era. So yeah, now the defense is calling it mutual combat. But look, I'm sorry, mutual abuse, that's not a thing. If he was the aggressor, it's abuse, period. And she was simply trying to protect herself. But Jane Doe's testimony is expected to last at least 5 days, so we shall learn more from her, I'm sure. So day 17. It brought a lot of questions around memory, around credibility, and around influence. It also brought us another layer of Diddy's alleged behavior, both inside the courtroom and perhaps outside the courtroom. Now, this case is far from over, and if anything, the tension will likely keep rising, and I'll be right here bringing it all down as always. So that's my show. I'm Stacey Brewer, and thank you for tuning in to H Blues Word. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, comment, share, all that great stuff. And as always, stay informed and stay grounded. Until next time, peace.